Hi, everyone. Welcome to the stream today. It's Miriam, and today I'm chatting with Cameron Law from the Carlsen Center for Entrepreneurship about the program that they have, and he's kind enough to be answering my questions so that I can make QUOKA the best product it can be. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and excited to share a little bit about the Carlson Center and see how we can support you in the QUOKA community.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on putting together this product, and any questions I ask you are just for learning. There's no right or wrong answer, just looking for honesty.
Sounds good.
It's really helpful. Do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I think we're ready to rock.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we start off with what is your role at the Carlsen Center for Entrepreneurship?
Awesome. Well, great place to start, definitely. So I serve as the executive director of the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We are a center located at Sacramento State, but we not only serve students, faculty, and staff on campus, but we serve the broader region. And during the pandemic, with virtual programs, have been serving the basically entrepreneurs across the nation and internationally. So it's been fun to expand that reach. In terms of my role, I do a variety of things. Some of them are working one-on-one with entrepreneurs. So, providing them kind of one-on-one feedback as they're going through the business creation and entrepreneurial journey process. I also work with our team to develop new programs to serve entrepreneurs along the continuum. So we really look at our support from what we call discover, build, and launch phases, which is really kind of from the idea to about that seed round of funding stage. And then outside of my, official capacity at the Carlson Center, I, am someone who's deeply involved in our entrepreneurial community through organizing things like 1 Million Cups, Startup Weekends, Global Entrepreneurship Week, a variety of things to build a community around our entrepreneurs and help them ultimately to have the best chance of success.
Nice. Thank you. Just taking the notes here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more detail about the support that you offer entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of a couple, I guess I'll say 3 flavors. So the first one is really kind of that community building aspect of things. So we run a program in partnership with Startup Sac, which is a local resource for entrepreneurs, but we partner on a program called Startup Happy Hour, where on a monthly basis, we bring in local entrepreneurs or investors to share their experience in starting a company. We feel that that's a great way to recycle knowledge to help up and coming entrepreneurs and also to build connections to their ecosystem to be able to quickly navigate to find resources. So that's kind of one area. Other events that we host are kind of one-off workshops. We call them our ecosystem partner workshops, where we tap into our mentor network to bring in speakers to talk about a variety of topic areas, everything from how to access grants for startups, how to go about sales planning for early stage companies. And then one that we actually have coming up here soon is a startup board development series where one of our board members will be talking about how to build an advisory and startup board. So really trying to bring in resources that are in the community and sharing that with our entrepreneurs, both on campus and in the community. So those are kind of our event style, where it's education / community building. The others are more targeted programs where we're actually giving you the tools, frameworks, and mindsets to go about taking your idea and building it into a business model, testing your assumptions, and hopefully bringing your product or service to market. So those take a variety of forms. One of them at an earlier stage is our virtual entrepreneurship toolkit series. This is a 5-part series where we provide you with the lean canvas framework. So it's a proven methodology that we teach, basically where you map your idea out into 9 core elements. But we really focus on helping you test your assumptions and actually have conversations with customers. And so over that 5 weeks, we go through each of the 9 elements. We bring in additional guest speakers to talk about areas such as, financial projections. We do an investor funding panel where you can learn about how to access capital and what they're looking for. And then also just a variety of things along that kind of value proposition and lean canvas process. So that's kind of our earliest stage program. We do have a cohort specific for student entrepreneurs. That's called our Mastermind Cohort Program. That's a spring program where over 12 weeks, we pair them with one-on-one mentors. And we basically connect twice a week. One is to derive content and help them kind of go through that business modeling process and how to actually go through customer interviews. And then the last meeting of the week is really what we call our cohort or community connects, where we talk about obviously the content and what they're working on, but also what other barriers are in their way from progressing their business. And that's really kind of that community aspect for them to feel like they're making progress and sharing and ultimately having peer-to-peer learning in that space. Our latest stage programs that are kind of similar to that, we have 2 key partnerships. One of them is with the Capital Region Small Business Development Center. If you're not familiar with the SBDCs, they are funded through the Small Business Administration. They're local resources around the nation, but we are an affiliate partner with them, and we run a summer and fall cohort called the Lean Innovator. So we do one 10-week long program and one 5-week long, and it's really to aim to support the entrepreneurs in developing their 1-sentence, 1-minute, and 5-minute pitch. And so that's really evidence-based, so getting them out there to have customer interview conversations that ultimately inform those core assets for them to ultimately share and storytell about their business. And then similar to the Mastermind program, we have 2 meetings a week. The first is content, and then the second is a community connect. We're really intentional about building community, as we think that that's key to driving our entrepreneurs forward. The last program that would be one to share is our partnership with Forthwave, which is an accelerator for women-led technology companies. This is a 15-week-long program. It's one where half the cohort is from Sacramento, and then the other has been spread throughout the nation. Over that 15 weeks, we have broken it into 3 core phases. The first phase is all about leadership development. So we bring in people to provide conscious leadership as well as the Enneagram testing. So we combine those 2 leadership styles and personal kind of development aspects. And then we feel like that's a strong foundation to then get into our second phase, which is really identifying business gaps. And so each of the teams is paired with a business mentor that helps them identify those gaps. And then as a community, we help to problem solve and help them kind of make progress in filling them. Our last phase of the program is preparing for funding. So it's really getting them kind of dialed in with their deck and sharing their story as a venture. And the last program that I'd share in this phase, in the last phase, is we also are launching a certificate program where our participants will walk away with a certificate of innovation and entrepreneurship from Sacramento State. It's a 10-week-long program, 8 hours a week, and teaching similar tools like the Lean Canvas, design thinking, and a variety of those. And we'll be on a weekly basis having guest speakers come in for that particular program. Mm-hmm. And then I said there was a third thing. So we had community direct programs. Oh, and then kind of just one-on-one support. So myself and our 2 entrepreneurs in residence, we meet in what we call office hours. So people can sign up for one-on-one time with us to kind of explore, issues they're facing in the business creation process. Sometimes it's, hey, I'm just getting started, and where do I start? And then sometimes it's like, hey, I'm starting to get on bringing on customers. How do I scale with them, both from a production standpoint, but also from continuing to invest into marketing and sales? So that's kind of our plethora of support.
Great. The entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs that you work with, do you feel they need any mental support?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, I think not only just entrepreneurs, but I think kind of just the people we serve in terms of like being leaders in a community, certainly, need that type of support. I think part of how we've tried to support that is through our kind of community aspects of things. I think that helping entrepreneurs not feel as isolated in that journey and to have shared learnings across one another is a core way that we've gone about doing that. So I do see that as something that we focus on and want to help them with.
Okay. And how is your program funded?
Yeah, so our program's funded in a couple of ways. It started through a principal gift from a Sac State alumnus. His name's Dale Carlson. So he started a venture out of after he graduated from Sacramento State, which was Sleep Train. And he once he exited Sleep Train a few years back, he decided to give back to his alma mater and started the Carlsen Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So we do have some endowment funding, but a lot of our funding comes from sponsorships and strategic partnerships. So that's a part of my role, is to fundraise and find those partners that, see that we can serve entrepreneurs and help them hit mutual goals, I guess, in terms of serving entrepreneurs.
So would you say that your program makes money in any way?
I mean, it makes money in the fact that we, are sustaining our current costs, but there's no like profitability as we're part of a university. So it's not like we have shareholders that we distribute funds to. In terms of our our partners as well, all of our partners, at least in terms of running programs, are either a non-for-profit or another government entity. So again, those profits are reinvested back into the mission to ultimately grow those programs forward.
Mm-hmm. How do you attract founders to apply for your program?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it comes from just my engagement in the community. I think building relationships and letting them know that we're a resource. So just how we met through like 1 Million Cups and things like that, where people might find different entry points into the ecosystem, but helping them kind of see that we have services available for them. I do outreach on kind of, things like LinkedIn and share our resources there. We do certainly get inbound as well, where people, either refer individuals our way or they come across our website or some sort of social post as they're searching for support around entrepreneurship and startups. So I think it's, a pretty equal balance. And then on campus, working through kind of like faculty partners to share our resources to students. So.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do you have any specific KPIs that you track?
At a starting point, it's been more focused on kind of, at least when I joined the Carlsen Center, was to really stand up programs was really our specific focus. So when I came on, we had about 1 or 2 programs. And that was, for me, I felt like we really needed to build a community around the Carlsen Center. So that's my first kind of KPIs, were really to stand up new programming to serve entrepreneurs along that continuum. Based on certain programs and partnerships, we do have KPIs around kind of what we call economic impact. So that's, our founders either, becoming a registered business, bringing on employees, increasing sales, bringing on capital. So we, could be capital injection. Those are some of the main goals that we would see. From a student perspective, certainly is similar economic impact, but also just student success in terms of, them feeling more connected on campus and in the community, and feeling more empowered as they go into their careers or their own potential startup journey. So, one of the things I like to, really look at is also our role, part of our mission and vision. So I didn't really say it at the beginning, but our mission is to make innovation and entrepreneurship pervasive throughout the greater Sacramento region, and then really working to make the Sacramento region a premier hub for innovation and entrepreneurship. And so with that is really we see the role the entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship plays in growing our economy. And so I think for us in working with students is empowering them with the entrepreneurial mindset to be problem solvers and bring a sense of empathy to those that they serve.
Mm-hmm. How do you go about deciding what partners and external programs you partner with? What does the process look like?
That's a good question. I think, some of it comes from past relationships with programs and just being kind of in the ecosystem and seeing where there's overlap of potential programming. So, I mentioned Startup Happy Hour and Startup Sac, that program that we've partnered on. I've known Laura Good and Jeff Bennett for quite a while, just from 1 Million Cups and other things like that. And I saw that, during the pandemic that we had resources to offer in terms of Zoom and additional capacity to serve entrepreneurs, and that they had, some audience as well. And so instead of competing to each run our own, event to share entrepreneur stories, we thought it'd be best just to collaborate on that particular event, right? And so then it shares resources and we have more opportunity to serve entrepreneurs. And then, other, relationships like the SBDC or Forthwave, those have come just from connections of Forthwave. Cheryl Benega, one of the founders, was on my Carlsen Center advisory board. And so we, talked about how we could ultimately partner and bring new life to the Forthwave program. So I don't know that there's outside of just kind of, again, being involved in the community and hearing the opportunities to partner, that's kind of been where I've focused our attention and kind of seen where we can uniquely create value and where others help us fill gaps in our programming.
Cool. How many founders are typically working with you any given point in time?
Yeah, so I think right now we just finished our, so I guess if we looked at last week, we have a cohort for our lean innovators going, and we have about 12 to 15 founders in that program. Forthwave, we have 11 founders. And then we have our Toolkit series, which we had about 30 people attend on a regular basis for that program. And then just kind of on campus meeting with our student entrepreneurship club, which, they might not be founders yet. We're probably serving, around 40 to 50 students there from a variety of things. And then, our monthly happy hour, we have anywhere from 30 to 50 people attending that. So in terms of deep work, with the two cohorts, that's about 26 people or so. And then kind of in our, from prior programs, we certainly still work with those founders as well. So they kind of continue to grow on that mechanism.
Great. How do you decide what areas to focus on for your programs?
In terms of education or leadership, those types of things?
Yeah, the education, the lean canvas, the investing, the different chunks that you break them down into. How did you guys decide these are the ones we're going to focus on? Yeah,
so a lot of that's been who I've brought on and partnered with. So Brian Gladden, who's one of our entrepreneurs in residence, he's well researched in that space and working with startups. And so, he kind of brought in some of that lean canvas and lean startup methodology, and one that, in terms of research has been proven to create, entrepreneurial successes. So that's something, we certainly bring in, and, we see it as providing entrepreneurs with a toolkit So it's really about, hey, this is, a tool that you can use to start business modeling. It's not the end. It's not just fill it out once and then it's, you're good to go. It's about kind of the process in general and how certain things connect. So it really is about kind of adding a variety of tools to support the entrepreneur given wherever they are in that process. So it's partly deferring to the instructor to a degree. We do have coherency with those programs and how they do that. In terms of the leadership, that's been something, again, that's just was proven with past founders and cohorts that we've worked with. So, that's kind of just, it's been, us going out and testing and seeing what works as well. So kind of, for lack of a better term, taking our own medicine in terms of some of those methodologies and tools.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Is there anything else that I should know?
Anything else that you should know? I think, just to reiterate that, for people is, sometimes they think since we're at Sac State that they have to be an alumni or they have to be a student or something associated with the university to tap into our resources. That's something that I've worked pretty hard to share, that we, are here to serve our community. I'm really open to partnering and exploring new ideas and concepts. So that's certainly one component that I wanted to share. And then I think just for people to, it's not always easy to go and engage in community activity. Sometimes it's, you might not know what's going on, which is, part of the things that we're trying to solve. But sometimes it's, I don't know if I fit in or certain things like that. But it's always key to make those connections. And, hopefully we can surround you with that community that helps you be more efficient in getting from point A to point B. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, that concludes the questions that I have. I would love to get your feedback on them, just since you work with the entrepreneurs on developing these types of conversations that they have with, potential customers, and you know what I'm working on, so.
Yeah, totally. So I think the questions are good for certainly understanding the program. Like, I guess the term that comes to mind is like the infrastructure, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think understanding how you might fit into, in the case that I use, community, training, and then one-on-one consulting, right? Like, where do you fit in that? Is maybe the first two are the right boxes, right? Or something of that sort. So I think that those are good questions. I think one of the things that would be something to lean on more is like talking about asking questions around problems. So like, what problems are you seeing with founders and making progress or not making progress? Or are there any stories you have of where a founder got disinterested or felt overwhelmed mentally around what they were going what they were building, and how did you react, or what was the setup for the program or community or something of that sort? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but kind of those types of questions that might have been, I think you asked good ones, certainly around the infrastructure and seeing how we plug in, but maybe some additional stories of how we might be serving or lack thereof of what your solution can solve.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like any of my questions were like leading questions?
I don't think any of them were leading questions. I felt like there was one that was more deeply tied to what I think you're working on. There was one about mental health regarding the programs, right? And so maybe it could be something of, instead of do you do that in your program? Because, I tried to explain, but sometimes it's, can you share a story of how, maybe you've integrated, mental health or mental wellness into your programming and what that like looks like to you, right? And you can kind of see how maybe the program provider or trainer, what does mental health look like to them, right? Is that something where it's more, maybe they see that as, we in Forthwave do like conscious leadership and mindfulness training. So is that, part of mental wellness and having those types of conversations? And so I think partly helping you define what that language is from the perspective of potential customer could be valuable.
Okay.
But definitely, I don't think you led me on any questions.
Right.
Maybe I'd ask you a question. Did you feel like you got, so I guess maybe one thing, I'll ask a question. Did you get what you wanted out of it, or do you still have further questions? Like what's, like when you walk away from, if we were to end that call at 22 minutes, did you feel like you got what you needed?
Probably not. I probably actually feel like I should also ask about more about cost and budgeting. That's
Gotcha.
one thing that I feel like I should have asked on. I want to ask more questions about mental health and that stuff, but I don't want to lead, and I also don't want to come across like, oh, you're not doing enough. Like you're, like I want to ask, are you aware of the statistics around entrepreneurship, depression, and things like that? But I don't want people to feel, I don't, in the interview, I don't want people to feel like they're not doing enough or, put them off.
I think I think it's certainly a delicate balance, but you don't want to spend time not getting answers, both either that validate or invalidate, right? So it's like this was if I was to put it, it's a neutral in terms of you didn't get a thumbs up or a thumbs down that what your assumptions are true. Does that make sense?
Right.
So right, we do customer interviews to a degree of, I have like maybe a few assumptions that I'm trying to test. So it could be that program providers are aware that this is a problem. Like that mental health is a problem around, entrepreneurship and startups, and that's something that they're integrating into their program to some degree, or are interested in, right? Or seeing value in. And so part of that is if you didn't ask any, you asked, I think, one question. I think the others will help you kind of define if maybe they have the means to procure the product or service, but not necessarily that I have a problem in supporting the mental health component, if that makes sense. So it might be right, because like if I'm your customer, so I think looking at your business, you have kind of it's almost like a kind of like a platform business, right? So your end user is the entrepreneur, right? So the entrepreneur is getting a certain value out of it, but your customer who's paying for it, say the accelerator or the program like the Carlsen Center, they're the person paying for it. So they're still solving some pain point for me, right? And so maybe that's, are you seeing burnout from entrepreneurs in your programs, and what does that look like, and how do you handle that? Are you as a, I want to ask them, are you an empathetic person who runs a program? But, are you someone who, when working with entrepreneurs, wears the emotions of their struggles, right? And if so, how does that make you feel, right? Is like, you're, not only helping them with their business, but you're trying to be the mental safe place for them to have some of those conversations, right? And is that, maybe that's not what you're trained to do, or nor have the like capacity to do that for 20 people, right? Like if you're trying to be an emotional safe place for 20 people, that's a lot of emotions to feel, both good and bad. So I think helping to kind of like figure out what that pain point looks like for the provider of the program. Because I imagine they've had experiences where an entrepreneurs come to them, and maybe it's because, hey, Johnny stopped coming to the cohort because things happened, right? And how were you prepared to deal with that in terms of, I was really excited to see, his or her success, but then something happened, and you're kind of wearing the emotional baggage of that or something,
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what the right question is, but I think asking for some sort of story of, have you, has there been in any of your cohorts times where, people have come to you regarding, and maybe it's not like mental, maybe reframing mental health as like, non-business challenges, right? Or something like that, where you don't see yourself as like a psychologist, but more so of like, hey, like, yeah, I actually was talking to, students about X, Y, and Z about what was going on in their life, which wasn't about the entrepreneurship. It was about many other things. Right. And that's part of the space that I feel like I have to create in order for them to succeed. But that's not necessarily like what my expertise is. And so.
Right. Yeah. It's
So I think
definitely a lot. Yeah.
So,
do you ever get any founders coming to you with non-business challenges?
It's been more, I would say probably, I would say a mix of students and people in the community. And it tends to be ones that I would say it's more in the cohorts where I've built like a more of a trusting relationship with someone. Not that people don't trust me in our Toolkit series, but it's, we're spending more time, and I think they're able to see the space that I can create for that. So that is certainly something that comes up. And, I think, I don't know if that's partly me, being someone that's empathetic and creating that space for people, or if that happens in other programs. I don't know the case for that. Or if even our other our entrepreneurs and residents have the same things. I don't think that that's true. But that's maybe just how I come to the program. But yes, there's definitely those things that get shared. I think they're partly, individual outreach, as well as just like reaching out of like, hey, you've been absent the last couple days or last couple of things, how are things going? Okay. Right. And like being conscious of that and wanting to support in that space. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Do you want me to add you to my mailing list? Is kind of the last question.
Sure. That sounds great.
Okay.
And I'll give you one more thing that I think you should add if you're done, if that was the end of your kind of like script.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say, can you refer me to 2 more people that are either in similar positions of you or that work in your programs that I would be able to talk to about this?
Yeah, that's such a good one. Can you?
Of course. So what I would ask is if you don't mind sending me just a short paragraph of kind of what that conversation would look like, and I can make those introductions.
Yes, I will do that. Got that geared up because now I'm switching from founder interviews to doing these interviews. So it's just like such a long process.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. No, it's all good. And that's, that's why you do it with, closer people, and then you start working your way out. But that last part is certainly key, because then you've expedited the process of finding the next person. Right. And that hopefully saves you time, money, all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks so much. We're going to end the stream, but make sure if you guys are enjoying what Cameron is talking about, want to support, reach out. We'll put up the URL for the Carlsen Center. And do you want to say anything to someone that may be watching that wants to kind of check you guys out, or how they get in touch with you, perhaps?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for sharing the link there. Feel free to reach out to me personally. My email is c.law@csus.edu. And always happy to talk to founders and support. I deeply appreciate and respect the risk that you're taking. And certainly one of my passions is to support entrepreneurs, because you're building the physical and virtual worlds that we live in, and want to be a part of that business and just development process. So don't hesitate to reach out, and thanks for the opportunity to share what we're working on and how we're serving entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Cameron.
All righty.